I want to talk today about narcissism. Narcissism is probably one of the biggest words I see thrown around on the internet today. It's very common nowadays for people to call someone else a narcissist. Before this, it was maybe toxic or even bipolar. And sometimes we use these words without really understanding what they mean. They all have definitions. Most of them appear in the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. And there are actual characteristics and symptoms that make someone truly a narcissist versus maybe just a little self-absorbed or selfish. And so I wanted to share some of the common symptoms that are listed as part of this disorder. Someone in my family that's very close to me, I believe, exhibits a lot of narcissistic personality tendencies. It's been very challenging to have grown up with this person my entire life, so I became very passionate about this topic. And narcissists, true narcissists, are extremely difficult to deal with. A lot of therapists and experts recommend going either low contact or no contact with the person, but sometimes that's easier said than done. And so if you're trying to figure out, am I actually dealing with a true, real narcissist, here are just some of the symptoms that you'll notice. Number one, they sort of have this over-exaggerated sense of importance. So they expect you to call them, keep in touch with them, think of them, invite them to things. They become very sort of dysregulated if they feel that they weren't central. They're the main character in their own story. And so you might get questions from a narcissist like, hey, I called you, where were you? Why didn't you call me back? Why didn't you get back to me sooner? I expected to hear from you. I was kind of disappointed that I didn't. They'll expect to be invited to things. If there's a party going on, it's a struggle for them to listen or have a long periods of time where they don't get to talk. They want to be sharing their story. They feel that, they're able to help people. They just very much think that there's a central spot for them in everybody else's minds because that's how they see themselves. Number two, they tend to be pretty rigid with a lot of their beliefs. So if you say, hey, I see that differently, I have a different belief, value, opinion, reaction to that, they'll tend to assume that you're wrong because they really believe that they're smart and they've got the answers. And so it's hard for them to understand that there could be more than one way of looking at things. And so you saying, yeah, I do that a different way, it's extremely difficult for a narcissist to process that information because, my gosh, there's only one way and it's the right way and it's my way. And so if you see somebody that's pretty black and white, very binary in their thinking, sort of attached to their values without any room for discussion, they just want to kind of prove you wrong and they keep sort of score and they look to win arguments and they can never consider new information, that's another sign of a narcissist. Number three, they lack empathy for other people, and this potentially comes because they feel that their situation is special. And so you'll often hear them sort of say things like, oh, this person is useless or helpless, or they weren't able to do what I wanted. They sort of feel that people are there to serve them. And so it's difficult for them to relate or understand to the struggles or woes of others because they feel their situation is special. And as part of this, I would argue, they also feel very entitled. They feel that rules should be broken for them, exceptions should be made for them. This particular person in my family that I believe has a lot of narcissistic tendencies, I've actually seen her take back used batteries to a store because they stopped working. And of course, the person at the store said, batteries do stop working. Once you use them, they die, actually. And so this individual just more was saying, yeah, but that's not how long it's been, or I didn't use them enough for that to have happened. You need to give me a refund here, and eventually was able to get her way. And so narcissists expect people to kind of bend over backwards for them, be at their beck and call. And when people don't do that, they get very confused. And again, they assume that it's the other person's fault. They feel they should be treated specially. They also play the victim a lot, and so when bad things happen to them, they tend to feel that other people wouldn't understand. They commonly would say things like, well, you're not in my shoes, or you could never understand the situation that I'm going through, but it's just so awful. And they kind of rattle off long lists of all the ways that life is unfair to them or has mistreated them, and they don't really have awareness that other people go through very difficult things as well, maybe even more difficult things, and don't make as big of a deal of it, or they just respond differently. They always feel that the deck is stacked against them and somehow they're getting the short end of the stick and woe is me kind of mentality.